Do some research, he says. I did some research into Laila's previous tweets, went back through her whole history. Pro-Pride, pro-LGBT, pro-Pride demonstrations, London is gay, London is trans, London is Muslim, all this bullshit. It could have been wrote by Sadiq Khan, actually, when I looked at it. So I did my research, mate. I looked on her own acting profile, she, her pronouns. Now, I know she's coming out strong now, talking very different to these things now, but why now? So so I did do my research because I wanted to see, because I thought, I listened to her debates, thought she sounds great. Where's she come from? And when I looked at where she come from woke bullshit. Now the public have changed. So because the public have changed, so many of these people who were on the side of woke bullshit are now jumping ship because they can see the mood of the nations change. Now everyone has an opportunity to wake up, to see the error of their ways and to change their views. But these are new views by Laila. That's all the point I'm making. That's why I said this Laila. I didn't look into what Sarah said, whether it's true, whether it's false. I just said this Laila. So I don't need to research anything, mate. You need to research her history, what she says, what she stood for, where she's come from. I've looked at companies, I've looked at everything. Yeah, so I've done my research, mate, which is where I found these posts. Have a good night.
Laila Cunningham has been presented as one of Reform UK's rising stars, particularly in the party's push for relevance in London politics and its challenge to the current mayor. Her campaign has gained attention for its hard stance against migrant hotels, pro-immigration policies, and the growing cost to taxpayers of housing asylum seekers. On the surface, her message seems to align perfectly with a public mood that is increasingly frustrated about borders, spending, and accountability. But recently, that image has come under serious scrutiny. And the reason is simple. People started looking into her past. Tommy Robinson, a figure who thrives on exposing what he sees as hypocrisy in politics, decided to examine Cunningham's old social media posts. What he claims to have found paints a very different picture of who she once was and what she once believed. According to Robinson, her earlier online presence was openly supportive of Pride events, LGBT activism, progressive demonstrations, and the kind of cultural politics usually associated with London's liberal establishment. In Robinson's words, her past messaging was indistinguishable from the worldview promoted by figures like Sadiq Khan. London as a proudly progressive, multicultural, identity-driven city. A place defined by celebration of diversity, social activism, and progressive causes. That image sits uncomfortably next to her current campaign, which criticizes migration policy, questions the use of public funds for asylum accommodation, and appeals to voters worried about social cohesion and public safety. This is where the controversy begins. Not because people are forbidden from changing their minds, but because voters are asking whether this is a genuine evolution or convenient transformation. In modern politics, authenticity matters more than ever. Voters are tired of slogans. They are suspicious of polished messaging. And they are increasingly willing to dig through a candidate's past to see if their current positions are rooted in conviction or calculation. Social media has made it almost impossible to erase old beliefs, and Cunningham's case is a perfect example of that. Robinson's argument is blunt. He suggests that Cunningham hasn't had a deep ideological awakening. Instead, he claims she has read the room. As public opinion shifts away from open border enthusiasm and toward concerns about housing, crime, and public spending, her message has shifted with it. From that perspective, her campaign looks less like leadership and more like marketing. To be fair, political evolution is not unusual. Many politicians move across the spectrum over time. People change. Experiences shape views. And it is entirely possible for someone to reconsider their beliefs after seeing policies fail in the real world. But when that change happens suddenly, loudly, and in perfect alignment with electoral opportunity, voters naturally become skeptical. This is especially true in London, a city that has become the focal point of Britain's cultural and political divisions. London politics is brutal. It rewards strong narratives and punishes inconsistency. A mayoral candidate asking voters to trust them with the future of the capital must expect intense scrutiny. And in Cunningham's case, that scrutiny is now unavoidable. The bigger issue here goes beyond one individual. It speaks to a wider crisis in British politics. Parties are struggling to connect with voters who feel burned by broken promises and shifting positions. Reform UK, in particular, has built much of its appeal on the idea that it offers something different, something more honest, more direct, less polished. That's why allegations of ideological flip-flopping are especially damaging. If reform candidates are seen as simply repackaging themselves to chase votes, the party risks becoming exactly what it criticizes in others. Anti-establishment movements live or die on credibility. Supporters of Cunningham may argue that her past activism reflects a younger version of herself and that her current stance represents maturity rather than opportunism. They might say she has seen firsthand the consequences of policies she once supported and adjusted accordingly. That defense could resonate, but only if it is explained openly and honestly. What voters struggle with is silence or avoidance. When past statements are ignored rather than addressed, suspicion grows. Transparency is the only antidote to accusations of hypocrisy. A clear explanation of what changed, why it changed, and when it changed is essential if trust is to be rebuilt. Tommy Robinson's intervention has ensured this issue won't quietly disappear. By publicly highlighting Cunningham's past, he has forced a conversation that her campaign can no longer avoid. Whether people like Robinson or not, he has a track record of drawing attention to inconsistencies that mainstream media often overlook or downplay. And that, again, feeds into a broader frustration with politics. Many voters believe that only outsiders ask uncomfortable questions, while insiders protect their own. When candidates are shielded from scrutiny, resentment grows. When their contradictions are exposed, the public pays attention. This situation also raises an uncomfortable question for voters themselves. Should politicians be punished forever for past beliefs, even if they claim to have changed? Or should they be judged solely on what they promise now? There is no easy answer. But democracy depends on informed choice, and informed choice requires full context. Ultimately, the issue is not whether Laila Cunningham once supported progressive causes. It's whether she is being honest about who she is today. If her current platform reflects genuine conviction, she should be able to explain the journey that led her there. If it doesn't, voters will sense that too. In the end, this story is less about tweets and more about trust. Trust in candidates. Trust in parties. Trust in the political system itself. Every time a politician appears to reinvent themselves without explanation, that trust erodes a little more. London voters will decide whether Cunningham's message rings true or feels rehearsed. But one thing is certain. In an age where every past statement can be unearthed in seconds, authenticity is no longer optional. It's the price of entry. And as this mayoral race heats up, voters will be watching closely to see whether this is a story of genuine change or just another example of politics as usual.